It began as an ordinary Saturday, the kind that never warns you how quickly the familiar can tilt into the unrecognizable. My friend Lena had called earlier in the day, her voice brisk yet affectionate, asking if I could watch her 12-year-old son, Adam, while she ran errands. Babysitting him wasn't unusual. I'd been a constant figure in his life since birth, so I agreed without hesitation. By the time I arrived at their house, late afternoon light slanted across the living room, painting the walls in amber hues. Adam was curled on the sofa, a video game controller in hand, his dark hair falling untidily across his forehead. He greeted me with a grin that still carried the remnants of boyhood, though I could already see the quiet gravity of adolescence beginning to sharpen his features. "Mom said you're staying for dinner," he said, dropping the controller on the cushion beside him. "Only if you promise to behave," I teased, ruffling his hair. It should have been a simple exchange, the kind of lighthearted banter we'd shared countless times before. Yet beneath the easy laughter, I caught something different in his expression, an almost imperceptible hesitation, as if words lingered behind his smile but refused to step forward. Adam had always trusted me, perhaps even more than he trusted his own parents. I was the aunt figure who never judged too harshly, who listened without rushing to correct or dismiss. So when he shifted uneasily and asked, "Can I tell you something? But you have to promise not to tell Mom," I felt a prickle of unease stir in my chest. I agreed, thinking he was about to confess to breaking something or skipping homework. Instead, his voice dropped into a fragile whisper. "I saw Mom with someone who wasn't Dad." The words landed with the weight of a stone, scattering the air between us. For a moment, I could only stare at him, the innocence in his eyes clashing violently with the enormity of what he had just revealed. He looked at me not with mischief, but with the raw vulnerability of a boy carrying a secret far too heavy for his young shoulders. In that instant, the world I thought I knew, the world where Lena was simply my closest friend and Adam her carefree son, tilted sharply. The central truth of our lives cracked open, exposing questions I wasn't sure I wanted answered. I reached for composure, for reassurance, for any words that could hold us steady. But deep inside, I already knew. Nothing about this evening would be ordinary again. Lena and I had known each other for more than a decade, bound by a friendship that had weathered both joy and disappointment. She was the fire to my calm, a woman whose confidence drew people into her orbit. From the first day we met in college, Lena had carried herself with a kind of luminous restlessness, as though ordinary life could never be enough. I admired her fearlessness, though at times it left me uneasy, as if I were standing too close to a flame I couldn't control. Her marriage to Faisal surprised many of us. He was steady where she was impulsive, cautious where she was daring, yet together they seemed to balance, his quiet devotion tempering her hunger for more. When Adam was born, their bond appeared unshakable, and I believed, perhaps too easily, that their story was one of stability. But Adam's whispered words had unsettled that picture, shaking my belief in the family I thought I knew. He had not spoken with exaggeration or childish confusion. His tone carried certainty, the kind that cannot be dismissed. I saw the way his small hands twisted nervously in his lap, the way his eyes searched mine for answers he shouldn't have had to seek. I tried to steady my voice, though my heart thudded against my ribs. "Adam," I said gently, "sometimes grown-ups make choices that are hard to understand. But it's not your fault, and it doesn't change how much your mom and dad love you." He frowned, his gaze dropping to the carpet. "But if Dad found out, everything would break." The maturity in his words startled me. He was only 12, yet he spoke with the gravity of someone who had glimpsed the fragility of the world too soon. And I, supposedly the adult in the room, was left scrambling for wisdom I wasn't sure I possessed. Lena, for all her vibrancy, had always kept a side of herself hidden. I'd seen glimpses, the restless way her eyes drifted when Faisal spoke about work, the half-laughs she gave when she called her life comfortable instead of fulfilling. Perhaps I should have pieced it together earlier. Perhaps I had chosen not to. Now Adam had pulled back the curtain, and I couldn't look away. The conflict pressed in from every side. My loyalty to Lena, my protectiveness toward Adam, and my silence that could either shield or destroy. as Adam leaned into me, his small voice breaking the stillness. "Promise you won't let it ruin us." "Auntie Sarah." I felt the sharp edge of responsibility slice through me. I promised. But deep down, I knew promises had their limits, and the night was only just beginning. The hours after Adam's confession moved with a strange heaviness, as though time itself had slowed to accommodate the weight of his words. He busied himself with his game again, pretending to be absorbed, but I could see the distraction in his eyes. Each laugh he forced was brittle, each glance toward me a silent reminder of the burden he had entrusted me with. I sat near him, my thoughts spiraling. How long had he been carrying this secret? Had he tried to tell his father and lost his nerve? Or worse, had Lena asked him to keep silent? That possibility chilled me. A child should never have to guard an adult's betrayal. "Adam," I said softly, breaking the hum of the television. "Does your dad know?" His hands froze on the controller. He shook his head quickly, eyes fixed on the screen. "No, and he can't. It would destroy him." His certainty unsettled me. This wasn't the anxious exaggeration of a child. It was conviction born from observation. He understood more than anyone wanted to admit. "I just don't get it," he whispered after a pause. "Why would Mom do that if Dad's so good to her?" The question cut deeper than he realized. I had no answer. Only the ache of knowing that love doesn't always protect against restlessness. I wanted to tell him his mother still loved them both, that adults sometimes lost themselves in choices they couldn't fully explain. But the words lodged in my throat, unworthy of the trust he had placed in me. Instead, I reached for honesty without cruelty. Sometimes people make mistakes because they're searching for something they feel is missing. But those mistakes belong to them, not to you. Adam nodded slowly, though the furrow in his brow lingered. He was trying to digest truths no 12-year-old should be forced to confront. The sound of keys at the front door jolted us both. Lena's voice filled the hall, bright and careless, announcing her return. Adam shot me a panicked glance, as if the secret might spill from his lips against his will. I placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. "It's safe with me," I murmured. He relaxed slightly, though the shadow in his eyes remained. As Lena breezed into the living room, arms laden with shopping bags, Adam slouched back into the couch, feigning nonchalance. I forced a smile, though every muscle in my body tensed, because now the conflict was no longer hidden in whispered words. It sat between us, alive, pressing against the fragile fabric of trust that held this family together. And I knew that before the night was over, I would have to face Lena herself.
When Adam finally retreated to his room, I lingered in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. Lena unpacked groceries with her usual flourish, chatting about traffic, sales, and the absurdity of waiting in line for an hour. Her voice was bright, but I caught the faintest tremor beneath it, like a note slightly off key. I sat at the table, fingers wrapped tightly around a mug I hadn't touched. My mind replayed Adam's words over and over until they became unbearable. At last, I spoke, my voice steadier than I felt. "Lena, we need to talk." She glanced at me, one brow arched. "That sounds serious." "It is." I swallowed hard. "Adam told me something tonight. He said he saw you with someone who wasn't Faisal." The air seemed to thicken instantly. Lena froze, her hand hovering over a carton of milk, then slowly set it down. She didn't ask for details. She didn't even attempt to deny it. Instead, she leaned against the counter, shoulders sagging, as if the weight of her secret had finally become too much to carry. "So," she murmured, eyes downcast, "he noticed." The simplicity of her admission startled me. No excuses, no laughter to brush it aside, just a weary acknowledgement that the truth was out. "Lena," I pressed, anger and sadness colliding inside me. "Do you realize what this is doing to him? He's 12. He doesn't know how to carry something like this." Tears shimmered at the corners of her eyes, though she blinked them back. "I never wanted him to find out. I thought I could keep my world separate, be his mother, be Faisal's wife, and still have something that was just mine. Her voice cracked on the last word, and for a moment, I saw her not as the confident, fiery friend I'd always known, but as a woman unraveling, desperate for a life she couldn't seem to claim honestly. "Something that was just yours?" I repeated, my chest tight. "At the cost of your son's trust? At the cost of your marriage?" She pressed a hand to her forehead, as though the truth itself was a wound. "Do you think I don't ask myself those questions every night? I know I'm wrong, but Faisal, he doesn't see me anymore. And this man, he did." For the first time in years, I felt alive. Her confession was raw, but it did little to soothe the ache in my chest, because no matter how she framed it, Adam's face lingered in my mind, his confusion, his fear, his need for reassurance. Silence stretched between us, heavy with everything we hadn't said. Finally, Lena's voice broke through, quiet and unsteady. "What do I do now, Sarah?" It was the first time in our long friendship I heard genuine helplessness in her tone, and for the first time, I didn't know how to answer.
In the days that followed, Lena's question, "What do I do now?" echoed through my thoughts like a bell that refused to fade. I had no clear answer then, and I still don't. Some truths don't arrive neatly packaged with solutions. They sit inside us, jagged and unfinished, daring us to confront them again and again. I saw Adam 2 days later. He greeted me with the same warmth as always, but his eyes betrayed a guardedness that hadn't been there before. Childhood had slipped a little further away from him, replaced with the knowledge that adults are fragile, fallible, and capable of shattering the worlds they build. We didn't speak of what he had told me. Instead, we played a board game at the dining table, his laughter occasionally breaking through the heaviness. Yet I couldn't forget the night he leaned against me, whispering fears no 12-year-old should have to carry. That memory clung to me like a shadow. Lena, for her part, promised she would end the affair. Whether it was a vow born of guilt or true conviction, I didn't ask. Perhaps I was afraid of the answer. My loyalty to her battled constantly with my loyalty to her son, and I knew whichever path I chose, someone I loved would feel betrayed. In quieter moments, I wondered about Faisal, the man who trusted Lena, who adored Adam, who believed his life was solid. Did he sense the cracks beneath the surface, or was he walking through each day blind to the fracture that threatened to split his family apart? The thought unsettled me. I wish I could say I found clarity, that I chose honesty or silence with certainty, but the truth is I remained in the in-between, a witness burdened by secrets, a friend torn between compassion and anger, a woman realizing that sometimes the hardest role to play is that of the bystander. Even now, when I think of Lena, I see both the woman who once laughed beside me in crowded dorm rooms and the mother who wept in her kitchen, confessing to choices that endangered the people she loved most. And when I think of Adam, I see a boy forced into wisdom too soon, holding questions no child should be forced to ask. Some stories don't end with resolution. They end with echoes. Echoes of trust broken, love misplaced, and the haunting awareness that innocence, once lost, cannot be restored. And so I carry this one, not as a neat conclusion, but as a reminder, betrayal never strikes just one heart. Its ripples reach farther than we ever intend.